Warning that an executive budget bill proposed by Governor Evers is drawing attention nationwide, changing several gender-specific terms like mother to inseminated person. The governor says the bill aims to recognize same-sex marriages by using gender-neutral language. Now, First Alert Update, Drew Best brings us now more details on the governor's changes and the criticism he now faces from Republicans.
Over the weekend, Governor Evers reintroduced his executive bill, but with some changes in terminology. The terms wife, husband, mother, and father replaced by words like spouse or inseminated person in the bill's IVF section. Governor Evers says all he is looking for with these changes is legal certainty that mothers will get the care they need.
We're working for the families in Wisconsin, especially those that are receiving IVF services, and making sure that we can make certain that the mom is able to get the services she deserves.
The Republican Governors Association calls the concept out of touch and offensive to mothers in a written statement. It reads in part, quote, "Being a mother is the greatest privilege I will have in my lifetime, and every mother I know feels the same. If Tony Evers can reduce motherhood to an inseminated person, then our society is lost," end quote. Other prominent Republican supporters taking to social media with their dialogue. Elon Musk calling the changes in the budget bill messed up, while Packers legend Brett Favre adds the move is nonsense. In response to the scrutiny, Governor Evers says the Republicans are just looking for an advantage during a time where they're under attack.
I didn't know that Republicans were against IVF, but apparently they are, because that is what that's about.
Governor Evers says if the terms he used do not make it in the budget, it could still eventually be brought to legislature again as a standalone bill. I'm Drew Best for Action 2 News.